Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 30 of the Pete Torre Show. We kick off 2022 with a lot of exciting programming in store just for you. This program is sponsored by the Health Channel and PS Business Parks. My opening guest for this year is a dear friend of mine, one of the top industrial realtors in South Florida, Ed Redlich. He is a managing member of Comreal Real LLC. You're going to get a first-hand update on what's happening with the industrial market. It is booming. It is exciting. There's a lot of things going on. But at the same time, Ed is going to share with you some insights, and we're going to overcome some misconceptions regarding real estate that I think you're going to find very, very exciting. So let's sit back and watch that conversation. All right, everybody, my pleasure to bring on to the Pete Torre Show my very first guest for 2022, Ed Redlich, the managing member of Comreal Real LLC. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, brother. How about you?
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to be part of this program, to share what I think is very, very important information on the real estate sector, particularly the industrial market, which has been going bananas. It's crazy what's going on, and knowing you the years that I've known you, you've always been one to display professionalism, relevant insights, information, and just as a person, I really honor you and respect what you're doing. And I know that hundreds of your colleagues in the real estate industry feel exactly the same way. When you mention Ed Redlich, everybody has a smile on their face, and that's a testament to not just you as a professional, but you as a person. So I want to give kudos to you for what you do, but more importantly, who you are, buddy. So thank you. I'm honored to have you on the program.
Pete, I really appreciate the kind words. That means so much to me. It really does. And you said the key word a minute ago, information. And even though we're in the real estate business, we're also in the information business. That's an old time saying, because you need the information to make good decisions in real estate. And I was listening to our audio of our radio show about a year and a half ago. It was May 2020. That was the last time we were together. And I realized how honest you and I were. We had an honest conversation and we gave good information. And ever since May 2020, every week, I think you and I have been vindicated on everything we said. So I appreciate being back with you. And every day, I think we're proving more and more right. So thank you. In fact, if you could maybe post a link in your video in the comments below, maybe people would like to listen to that conversation as well. Thank you.
Oh, no, we're going to get that out there. And I'm just going to be straightforward with everyone that's watching and listening to us right now. We had our take on what was going on with the lockdown of the pandemic. Things had to happen the way they happened, and our elected officials had to respond at that time with what they thought was the right thing to do. But we also have, as good citizens, the right to speak our mind in a way that doesn't point fingers, but really illuminates what's going on. And today, it's not even so much about being vindicated. I think that the important thing is that what we shared back then is we've been consistent, and we've seen the things the way they've unfolded. And we are talking about the whole COVID thing that's created such a division with people and businesses and opinions. And I think that your role, as much as I, is to let's come together. Let's work together for the benefit of everybody. And let's start to focus on goodwill and on bringing positive ideas and working together and collaborating together, because at the end of the day, that is what's going to allow us to get to where we all want to go to. And that's been our philosophy and our motivation back then, as it is right now. And I know that will continue to happen moving forward. So it was an honor to speak with you a year and a half ago during those very, very uncertain times. The uncertainty continues, though. But I don't think there's any mystery that the industrial market really around the country, but the focus, our conversation today will be South Florida. We're going to hit on three different things today, but the first thing we want to hit on is the industrial market here in South Florida, Miami-Dade County. Can you give us an overview? What happened last year, where we're at today, and where do you think we're going?
Yes, and just to touch on what you said, I think you and I are both truth seekers. We want the truth, and if we're wrong, we want to be corrected.
Hmm.
And a lot about what we talked about was basically just sharing the information with the people. And I was optimistic that we would maybe be through this sooner than we are. Here we are a year and a half later, still talking about some of the same things, but that's okay. And I think you also mentioned we want this information so we can make the right decisions. And it's very challenging nowadays because the rules keep changing. As business owners and somebody who represents business owners, it's helpful to know in our strategic planning and our hiring process and making big decisions, especially with real estate, what are the rules? 2021, the rules changed drastically. Going into 2022, we don't know what the rules are, but we need accurate, real information to make honest decisions. And I have a different perspective, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience today on some of those things. So, but yeah, we can just get started. I can share an overview of the industrial market and some
Sure.
statistics that might
Hmm.
be helpful to the audience. So just a quick background on myself. I've been in the commercial real estate industry since 1995. Both of my parents were in the real estate profession as well. And on a daily basis, my team and I, we work with manufacturers, import exporters, distribution companies. So we get a good perspective on a multitude of sectors. And I think that's why we're able to see kind of some hints what's going on the front lines with our economy. So that being said, just to jump into the industrial real estate market to give a quick overview, Miami-Dade County has about 255 million square feet of warehouse space. Now, in comparison to Los Angeles or Chicago, we're a fairly small market in that regard. We have about 25% of what they have in their inventory. Each of those markets have 1 billion square feet. So we're about 25% of those markets. Right now, we're adding about another 5 million square feet of warehouse space that's under construction right now. So we continue to grow our inventory. Yet our vacancy rate 1 year ago, our vacancy rate average was just under 5%. And then today, a year later, our vacancy rate's only 3%. So it's a very tight market. And half of what's available is way overpriced or it's dysfunctional. So our market is very challenging, and hence why they're constructing more warehouse space in our market. Now, this is also important to note. The average rental rate for warehouses, it was $13 per square foot a year ago. Today, it's $15 and even a little higher. That's a 15% increase. And I want folks to remember that number, 15% increase on warehouse lease rates. Similarly, the warehouse prices averaged $165 a square foot today, no, a year ago, and today it's about $200 a square foot. So that's also a 15% increases in the average sales prices of warehouses. So these are all-time high prices. It just continues to go up, and it's going to go up until it's not. Okay, that's another saying too, right? So in addition to that, you have the lower interest rates, and that just gives buyers more buying power, and then that means it pushes the prices even further high. And the last thing I'll leave off with on this part is we had $2 billion worth of sales of warehouses last year in our market, which is massive. Every investor wants to be in Miami, and Miami is one of the best markets in the United States. So it's important for folks to know that, whether it's the aviation industry, the food industry, the entertainment industry, all these folks use warehouses, and that's what's driving a lot of our market as well too.
Ed, that's driving it, but what particular sector and I think, and we talked about this, is it the e-commerce explosion that is really that spark that's taken this market to a whole different level?
Yeah, I would agree that's absolutely one of the main drivers. Folks are not going to shop in retail stores; they're ordering online. So that inventory has to go somewhere, and it's staying in the warehouses. So companies are putting in warehouses rather than taking up space in retail centers. So e-commerce, absolutely. Your large box retailers, absolutely. The food industry, people have to eat. So no matter what the economy is doing, they're consuming food. In Miami being an international market, that's another huge sector in our industry too.
Now, moving into 2022, do we expect similar trends? Do you see anything changing it up at all?
Yeah, right now everything looks very well. Last year was a great year. The past 2 years have been, the industrial market has probably outperformed some of the other commercial real estate assets in across the nation. And obviously, it's a seller landlord market. So if you're going to rent space, the landlord controls the deal. If you're going to buy a property, the sellers are naming their price. Um, Talk about some other trends. You know, for many years, we saw annual increases on rents for tenants and warehouse spaces at about 3%. That was very common in the marketplace. Now, landlords are, it's not uncommon to see 4% annual increases or 5% annual increases. But we'll talk about this more later. We know
Yep.
now that the CPI is 7%. So if a landlord puts a lease in front of you and says, "Hey, your increases are going to be 5%," well, still better than the national average of a 7% inflation. Um, Property taxes continue to go up. It's not uncommon to hear a property owner say that property taxes have increased to 10% from last year, and in some cases, we even heard as much as 25% as of last year. And especially is the case with all of the new sales, the assessed value, Dade County is catching up with the new purchase price,
Hmm.
assessing the property values higher, and then that's getting pushed on the tenants. So we're seeing a big problem. So when we work on the tenant side, we do our very best to control the annual increases, the controllable operating expenses, because leases signed today are going to continue to go up. Um, Another trend that we see is we're calling it the dirt squeeze because, as you know, Miami's on a peninsula and we're running out of industrial dirt, which is what we sell. We sell industrial dirt. Well, the large developers can't find a lot of large tracts. So you and I were talking yesterday about the Lemon property in Doral. It's about just shy of 200 acres. That's under contract with a major developer. Um, I heard it's about $2 million per acre, and that property's been there forever. And then another
I think the
important,
total price tag on that was about $350 million,
yes, I believe you're
give or
right.
take.
Yeah.
And I
So
also heard that in 1970, late 70s, 70s, when it was purchased, it was purchased, get this, hopefully I'm correct on this, for about $55,000. That was a purchase price like
incredible,
45 years ago. Think
incredible.
about that for a second.
Yeah. And it's a great location in Doral. It's
Yeah.
on Doral Boulevard. It's on Main and
Yes,
Main.
yes, yes.
And then on that note, another very significant project is there's a project right now in the works. It's 800 acres and it's going to be in South Dade. It's the South
Yes.
Dade Logistics Park.
Yep.
And it's in process now at Dade County. They're actually moving the urban development boundary line to
Yep.
bring in this 800 acres. And what's driving that? Again, is e-commerce and big box retailers. It's the Amazons, it's the Walmarts that are pushing this down there.
Absolutely. All right. So we've heard now from you on what's happening with industrial real estate. What do you think? And these are all been facts that you've been sharing with me so
Mhm.
far. I want to dive into a little bit about the misconceptions in general about real estate. And there's a lot of information out there that's not 100% correct, which doesn't help businesses when they're trying to make decisions on purchasing and leasing and everything to do with their business. Can you share some of those myths that are out there and let so that we can set the record straight today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be remiss to say that in Miami going forward, I think we're going to outperform the national market. The state
Yes.
of Florida, our economic policies are bringing more businesses to Florida, and Miami is one of the best markets in the United States, going off the facts.
Hmm.
So even if the national economy takes a different turn, I think Miami will just do better. So that's
Yes.
a point I wanted to make. But
Absolutely.
okay, well, this will be fun because yeah, there are some misconceptions in the real estate business. And I'll start off with one of my favorites. It says, invest in real estate because it always goes up. You hear this saying, and sometimes people say it, and you hear it so often that you basically kind of dismiss it. Um, that's oftentimes somebody who's been in the real estate profession for not more than a decade. They didn't experience the 2008 situation where commercial property values in Miami-Dade County went down by 20%. Other markets went down by as much as 40 or 50%. So yes, it's true that since maybe 2010, the industrial market in Miami has been in a bull market, but it doesn't always go up. So I think that's an important point for people making decisions in real estate. And then they might say, well, if you look back 100 years, the prices of real estate have
Average
always gone up.
appreciation have been 4%, 5%, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, sure, but everything's gone up, and I'm going to use bacon and lumber, and fuel. The prices of everything has gone up. So it's just, I sell real estate as a living, but I don't want to mislead people to say, hey, you're going to invest in real estate and don't worry, it's always going to go up, because it may not. So anyway, that's a common misconception. Another one I think that folks say, very, very similar to that last one, is real estate is becoming more valuable. And well, it is true to some extent, but I think there's a big disconnect between what the price is and what the value is. When you see real estate price goes up, people will say, oh, well, it's more valuable. And I said, well, you don't go into the grocery store and see that the price of bacon has gone up and say, oh, well, the bacon's more valuable. No, it hasn't changed. And if you go buy lumber for a construction project, you don't say, oh, well, the lumber is more valuable. This piece of plywood is more valuable. It's not. The price has gone up. Doesn't make it any more valuable. In fact, with the warehouses in our market, some of these warehouses are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. So just because the price goes up on the real estate doesn't mean it's more valuable. And perhaps it needs a new roof. It needs a recertification for the structure. The floor's cracking. It needs to be painted. So there's a big disconnect for that. So I sometimes want to challenge people on what the difference is between the price and the value that they're getting for that price.
Let me ask you a question though. Isn't that type of mindset driven by the fact that, when you buy your bacon and you buy your lumber and all that, it's something that you need, or you need to eat, or you need to, refurbish the home, or build a home and all that. Real estate, in the mindset of so many, is an investment. So they're kind of looking at it with those, eyeglasses. So maybe that's where that thought process comes from, is because they're looking at it a little bit different than the food that I'm buying.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that might be why they're looking at it that way?
Absolutely. But I think my point here is that what does the price of bacon, lumber, your fuel costs, and real estate all have in common? What do those each have in common?
What, in today's world, inflation?
Bingo. You're spot on. It's the dollar. That's what they all have in common. All of those items are priced in dollars. So it's not like these items are becoming more valuable because the price is going up. It is that the dollar is losing value. That's the difference. And that's the point that I want to try to make with folks, is because just because you see the prices going up, does not mean it's more valuable. So when you're in your decision-making process, I think this is important to understand. And every case is unique. Every case is different. It's like why we like to have a conversation with people to say, what are your goals? This is what's really going on in the market. And then how do we make the best decision from here? Can I make a couple more?
Let's go right through it there. Sure.
Okay, cool. Yes, sir. So the another one you hear is real estate can outrun inflation. Okay, and that is true up until a point. It's true until it's not. So at this point, we've learned that the inflation right now, it's been disclosed, as 7%. At least that's what they're telling us. And the prices in Miami have gone up 15%. So you're right. Miami industrial real estate has outrun the inflation. If you leave your dollars in the bank, you're losing 7% of the value. Okay, that's what they're telling us. Well, if you put it into Miami real estate, the prices are going up 15%. So you're ahead of the game. Congratulations, you beat inflation. However, that's not true in other parts of the country. And I would actually dare to say, and this is also very important, if your viewers want to go to shadowstats.com, the real inflation is 15%. It's not 7%. And Shadow Stats, which is run by John Williams, he uses the government's original calculation to calculate inflation. And that number, unfortunately, is 15%. So honestly, you may not be beating inflation by buying Miami real estate if the inflation is 15%.
Well, case in point, look at the price of gasoline. Has that gone up 7%? I don't think so. I wish
Exactly.
it would only go up 7%.
Mhm.
I think the inflation rate of gasoline, whatever, from 225 that we had a little bit over a year ago, and I just saw now, 3.79 for regular. I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting dangerously close to $4 a gallon. There
Mhm.
is already for the premium, but the regular, we're getting really close to that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
And
goes up and it
unfortunately,
comes back, but we're edging up towards that. So that's not 7%.
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's
And you
more.
see
That's
that.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think most people are starting to understand that. And the last misconception is that, these prices are driven by the free market.
Hmm.
And that is absolutely partially true, but that's not completely true, because there's another driving force, and that is the Federal Reserve. And if you
Yep.
looked at what happened yesterday in the stock market, very volatile. It was down 800 points, and then it ended the day over 200 points on the Dow. That volatility was all because of the Federal Reserve's meeting that's happening right now as you and I speak.
Yep.
And that's what's causing. So that is central planning. That's what's driving the stock market. That's what's driving the American economy. And I'm going to show you how it actually drives what's going on in the Miami real estate market. And if I can just read you
Hmm.
some things that I posted over the past year in regards to this. So, first, they said there's no inflation. Then there's a little bit of inflation, but don't worry about it. Then there's going to be a little more inflation, but it's okay. It's good for us. Then inflation, they told us, won't be over 2%. Then they said, well, it's only going to be an average of 2%. Well, then it became over 2%, but it's okay because it's transitory.
Hmm.
Then they said, well, it's going to take us a little longer because the inflation is sticky. Remember these words, and transitory, sticky. We heard it hundreds of times. Okay. Then they said inflation is higher because businesses are raising their prices. So they're blaming businesses, right? Then they're blaming the consumers because we're consuming too much. So now it's our fault. It's the people's fault because we're buying too many items. Um, okay, now they want us to lower expectations because of the empty shelves and the higher prices. Well, we just have, it's our fault again. We
Man,
have to lower
this is getting
expectations.
real. This is starting to sound like the misery index of back in the Carter administration that then candidate Ronald Reagan talked about,
Okay,
where we were told to accept mediocrity, and
bingo.
that
Yeah,
is not the spirit of this country. Mediocrity.
no, not
We're
at all.
about
That's why
greatness.
I've I'm in the real estate business, but I've studied economics my entire adult life, and that's why I want to put it all together and rattle these items off of. Because you remember this now. Once you put it all together, you remember this is what they're telling us. Okay. Um, okay. So now here we are. Fast forward to today. Now they said, well, the Fed is going to taper. What that means is the $120 billion that they
Hmm.
counterfeit per month and put it into the system. Um, that say, well, that the high inflation and shortages are now going to last through 2022 and beyond. So they keep moving the goalposts. They keep
Yep. Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
the deal.
And there's
And
no and then there's no accountability
none,
out there. It's
no,
always something else or someone else is
mm,
causing the issues, the negativity that's going on here. And that
mhm,
that's a whole different conversation we can have one day, but there is a major lack of accountability and taking
mm,
ownership today more than ever. It's about
yeah,
what the other person is doing or not doing.
yes, and we can have that conversation, but it would be dishonest for me to tell you, like, the Miami industrial real estate market is not always driven by free market forces. This is
Right.
what's going on, and I have to read just a couple more. This is an old time saying from a central bankster, and he says, "He who can borrow first can buy first, and therefore profit first." So when the Fed, the United States government, is printing this money, and these investors are by the machine first, and the central banks are loaning them the money first. You and I are down the line, friend, so they can go out, and that's what's pushing these prices on everything up, is because the big guys are getting bigger and the small guys are getting smaller, unfortunately. Um, and this is going to continue until it stops. And I think I kind of foresee this continuing, where we might get into a stagflation scenario,
Yeah, yeah,
which we saw in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, and
yeah.
you saw persistent inflation uh, combined with a low production. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll have that period of time, and then it might flip to complete deflation.
Yeah, no,
So
it's insane. My friend, we can go on and on and
yeah,
on and on. We're running out of time here, but I wanted to get a closing comment from you of, what you're seeing and what we all need to do to be part of the solution as to being part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I could share stories with you of how Dade County has shut down our business and has harassed businesses, and that's been a big part of it. But if you'd like to wrap up, I would say that I have to. I don't know if you can see this, but
I
I'm
got
gonna.
it. I will not comply. I love it.
Yeah. So that's been my attitude since the beginning, and I've been consistent on this. But as business owners, we make the rules. These bureaucrats and these tyrants, they work for us. They work for we the people. It's not the other way around. And Martin Luther King taught us that we have a moral duty to obey unjust laws. And I haven't worn a mask in over a year. I keep my business open. I think we the people need to hold these bureaucrats and these tyrants accountable. And if they make rules that we don't approve of, and just yesterday, the judge in New York State said that mask mandates are not constitutional, which I was suspended and censored and banned from Facebook and for Twitter for saying the exact same thing. It's taken a couple years.
The Prime Minister of England about a week or so ago said no more mask mandates. So I think that is starting to, everyone is waking up to this, and we just got to move forward. And closing, COVID is going to continue to be part of our life moving forward, something we're going to live. We're going to have surges, we're going to have seasons, but it's time to move on and to be productive and to focus on the solutions. Ed, this has been terrific, buddy. I truly enjoy speaking with you on air, off air. It's refreshing, it's enlightening, and like I said, man, you're the ultimate professional. You love what you do it great, and you're also a guy that connects with all of your fellow colleagues in your industry, because that's what you want at the end of the day for everybody.
And Pete, I would say I listened to your video yesterday about Figure It Out. You titled it Figure It Out.
Yes.
And that's so American, and that's what I'm talking about. We need to go back to our roots. We need to be self-reliant. We need to be independent. We need to live and let people live their lives. Okay. And we need to be happy and be free. And, so I appreciate what you're doing. I loved your video, and God bless you and God bless America. Thank you, sir.
Thank God, buddy. You take care of yourself. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Be good.
All right, bye-bye. All right. A big thanks to Ed Redlich, who took the time to be with us today and share his expertise and insights into what is happening in the industrial real estate market here in South Florida. Thank you for being with us today. Remember, this program is for you. My intent and my mission is that you can grow your business, your career, and your life and take it to that next level. And we do it by bringing on the very best experts and also successful entrepreneurs that will share and continue to share their amazing stories. Follow me on all social media platforms, and if you got a moment, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Pete Torre. You could also listen to my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and TuneIn Radio. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, we do this every week. And as I always say, my friends, let us soar together, especially in this new year. You take care of yourself, and God bless.